issued. It's out on the street right now for, we're looking for engineering and architectural team for the dock replacement. So those statements of qualifications are due here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be moving forward with a selection on that and hopefully bring that to council late May, early June with the scope of work for the dock replacement. So just if you hear RFQ, we've got a couple of different things moving forward on the water side and on the land side. So it's pretty exciting.
Very good, thank you. Mayor Pina or Councilmember Buxton, anything from you? All right, Michael, let's move forward with passenger ferry update.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to, I mean, council, it's an exciting time. It's taken us a long time to get to this point. And I think, you know, COVID, of course, stood in the way of a lot of movement forward, but that's, you know, potentially we can now surmount that challenge. But I think the main thing is the council will probably be asked all kinds of questions about all the different aspects of this. And the idea is that, you know, we're working, like Dan said, on the water side, we're working with the master planning, working with an RFQ for parcel A and development of that plaza and marina steps and all of that. And then we're also looking at parcel B as part of the marina redevelopment, but also on the marina floor. And we could put a green roof on top of that parcel B building. But yeah, there's a lot going on, and we're trying to design it so it can be integrated one thing into the next. So we're not, I think one thing, Chair Nutting, you've always said was don't put yourself in the position of repeating your steps, right? I mean, take advantage of what opportunities you have when you have them. And so we're trying to, I mean, that's, you know, one of the critical components of how we're proceeding. So let's move on to the passenger ferry update. I apologize to anyone who's already heard this, but because we just did it in municipal facilities. But, you know, there was talk of a ferry service for years here, and going back probably, and Scott Wilkins would know, but probably 2010 or even earlier. And nothing really came of it. I mean, I actually, when I first came here, wrote an application for King County water taxi, and they did not accept it. You're too far to the south. It's not relevant because it was completely Seattle centric. And over time, it became clear that as we, and it's interesting benefits, but as we worked in our partnership for the business park and in partnership with Transportation Improvement Board and did all the improvements to 216th and 24th and 28th going to the airport, all of a sudden access to the airport became a critical issue for multiple uses. Logistics for companies trying to, you know, send stuff out as cargo, passengers, the development of the Angle Lake Station, the Metro shuttle for multimodal approaches. All those things started to have value looking at ferry service. And about 3.5 years ago or so, 4 possibly, we had an initial discussion with Kevin Clark, who's the president of Argosy, great guy, and Peter Phillips. And we talked with Kevin about, would you ever be interested in providing ferry service? Or actually we talked about dining cruises and some other things. And he said, yeah, I would be interested. So we always kept that in the back of our head thinking, okay, at some point, maybe Argosy would want to play. And that was the genesis of Argosy giving us the boat for the community open house. And that in October of 2017, we held that open house looking at uses and everything. And then it kind of, you know, lay fallow for a while. And then PSRC picked this up and they started doing a ferry study. So we were in touch with them, but in the meantime, we talked with Kevin again, and he said, you guys should do an independent analysis of demand for ferry service and passenger ferry. So we hooked up with some folks who are from the Midwest, Liz Deirdrick and her staff. They came out. We had a presentation to council, I think the 26th of September, 2019. And we had Robert Holmes there, and Skylab, and Mark Bunzel was there, and Liz was there, and one of her staff folks. And so that three-legged approach, we said, well, let's move forward. And that was the meeting where council gave us the blessing to move forward with the RFQ. So that was great. Then Liz did her study, and they just finished it, I think, and I'd have to look back, but it's in the last probably few months or so. They ended up doing their study right in the middle of COVID. And COVID didn't dampen people's enthusiasm for passenger ferry service. And I think one of the things about it is, I mean, there's something about being over the water and being where the breeze is blowing and being in the open that is kind of an antidote to some of the constraints we've all faced regarding COVID. But they did their analysis, and then PSRC told us that they would in fact include our analysis in the ferry study they were doing. And I think in the end, our ferry study was, let me just say, more comprehensive than what they came up with. And so it wasn't quite a fit of equals relative to the analysis. That's the nice way of describing this. And so what happened was that they referenced the study, but it wasn't in there. Then the next step was that the PSRC study is supposed to go to the legislature for review and potential further study and feasibility and all of that. And that study referenced from 15 years ago that Des Moines' role was to have a connection with Southworth, right? Okay, right? Was that 43, 44 people a year? I mean, is that the greatest advantage that Des Moines has, is being that location? So we didn't think so. So then we got in touch with Ryan Mello. Ryan Mello is a great guy. He was a Tacoma City Council member when we first met him, recently elected to the Pierce County Commission, very, very supportive of passenger ferry service from Tacoma. And his view, and not to characterize Ryan, but essentially they have service to Vashon. They could have service to other areas, including Des Moines, including on to Seattle, but it wouldn't be a Seattle-centric approach. It would be a regional approach. So Ryan came up about a year ago, took a tour of the city, loved everything about what we were doing, what we had in mind, that this was a viable landing spot for ferry service, and how could that work? And so then last week, Scott Wilkins, myself, Eric Lane, Anthony Hempstead, we all went down to Point Ruston, where Ryan knows the folks really well. Kevin Clark came to the meeting, a fellow that builds electrification hydrofoils out of San Francisco came to the meeting. A gentleman, Tim Thompson, who's been involved in government relations in Washington for a long time, Washington State and Washington. And then Ryan chaired the meeting. And then, so we talked about how could we do this? And the key point being, financially, could we do a public-private partnership? And what would the contribution of the public agencies and the private sector look like? So the next step is to try to formulate a structure to look at the possibilities of public-private partnerships. And then we went out and looked at their two dock sites in Point Ruston. One is kind of a wharf, and the other is a marina. And that's, I think, close to where the Vashon ferry leaves from. So the question is Point Ruston viable? And then the other thing is that, downtown Tacoma could be another landing site, or both of them. So the idea is that the level of interest in this and multimodal transportation and the potential that our congressional delegation could actually help us put this in place as alternative to I-5, because now you got another commute pattern for people. And a lot of this movement that we see to the south, King County and north Pierce County, that is a function of land values, that's creating development opportunities, that's creating housing and businesses and employment and all of that. This is one of the solutions to addressing those problems for people wanting to get to Seattle or from Des Moines to Tacoma or whatever. There's multiple patterns in there. So and I was surprised because I thought our redevelopment could possibly one day spur passenger ferry service. And now it looks like it's going to potentially be the other way around. And once again, if we could do electrification of whatever boats or catamarans, and there's a number of operators that have been coming and going through Des Moines, taking a look at it. That, once again, we just had SR3 open, and they're all about studying the impacts of, negative impacts on orcas. So if we could go to some type of, non-noisy solution, that would be great for the environment, and and push this sustainability. It's one of our hallmarks. So I've been surprised of the interest in the passenger ferry dynamic, and especially public-private partnerships, and especially the possibility this may all be feasible. And of course, we would bring it to council before, we ever entered into an agreement like that. I think we'll do some preliminary work. There's some consultants that we may be hiring for a few $1,000s who kind of look at the feasibility of how this could all be done and give us a product to move forward and fill in the blanks and so forth. But it's exciting. And, then you have the hotel folks and you say, we're going to have passenger ferry service, or however many other interested parties, and they're all for it. That's a total positive for them. And that's going to enhance the quality and knowledge of our marina, what we're doing, and use and activity, and especially as we do the redevelopment piece. So it's really interesting how this is evolving. And I don't have any answers yet, but I have a lot of interest. So we will inform you as we go, joyfully inform you, and be happy if you have any questions or comments or anything.
Very exciting news. Mayor Pina.
This is very exciting news. The return of the mosquito fleet, as Scott Schaefer said this afternoon, or earlier this morning. And one of the things I like about it is, Michael, the way you've described the pieces coming together, it's not only just to revitalize just the marina, but because of the connection to our downtown, that's a revitalization of the entire city. And we've talked about this over many years that we've had the pleasure of working together, and to see things start to unfold and the true possibilities happen, become from a possibility to a reality. I know that both of my colleagues here at different levels, Councilmember Nutting, you work on buildings, Councilmember Buxton, you work on homes. At least to the best of my knowledge. When you see the project or you have a vision, that's one thing, but when you see it start to become the reality, that's where the excitement builds. And then when you really see it, and we've been working on this a long time. So I am so excited. This is the exciting time. Now I want to see the finished product. So I couldn't be happier. And City Manager Matthias, you and your team have done outstanding work. And I just want to express my gratitude.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well said, Mayor. Tracy, did you have anything to add?
Well, just to reinforce that this is the beginning to fulfill the dreams of a few decades. I think I just was in a conversation this week with a resident, and some residents, depending on how long they've lived here, it's really difficult to convince them that we really are doing this. They've been taught, they've seen the drawings, they've seen renderings, they've heard chit chat so many times. They've been to meetings, they've been to community outreach 10, 15 years ago. So it is a challenge a little bit to say, no, it is really happening this time. And so I want to commend the staff, for you guys, for pushing through, making this happen, especially in one of the toughest times this nation has ever seen, to continue to push through the economic challenges, the whatever challenges, to fulfill this dream that this community has had for decades, really. So thank you. This is amazing and wonderful. Appreciate it.
Well said. Well, thank you, staff. That is it on our agenda for the economic development committee meeting tonight. Unless there's anything else staff needs to get out in the open.
I just, one thing, I really appreciate your comments. Obviously, that's, what we wanted you guys to do is tape that and just replay it every meeting. But But I think one of the things that's really cool is I think that this committee is going to be really helpful in helping kind of, set the guideposts for how we go about this. Because, Tracy, you're describing all of you, with your experience in the community. Some of it will be believable. Some of it won't be believable till they can see it, till people can see it. But just the process we follow, where are the landmines, where's the danger, what things do we have to watch out for? I think you guys are going to be incredibly helpful that we can do this in partnership, which is really what we need to do. So that's my comment. Look forward to updating you every time we get a chance on all of this.
Very good. Thank you. All right. I guess that takes us to the end. I want to thank the staff and my fellow council members and the community that showed up for the meeting. And we'll be seeing everybody in about half an hour.
Great.
Right. Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Adjourn.
Second.
All right. We have it. See you guys.